Folks, welcome into That Betting Show, February 11th, 2019. It's a Monday, fresh. Let's just say off his little reprieve, getting back into the flow. He's Teddy Savransky. Give him a follow at Teddy_covers. I'm Donnie Seymour at Rightside VP, your one-stop shop for all your sports betting needs. The dynamic duo back in the saddle today. A lot to go over today. Some interesting stuff, Teddy. And over the weekend, hey, look, we thought the Super Bowl was over and football was done. Not so fast. Let's get right into it here this week. Pitchers and catchers will be reporting. We'll come up with some interesting stuff in just a few moments. Teddy, hot topic of the day. Once again, those Duke Blue Devils as underdogs go in to Charlottesville and pull out a victory. I'm impressed, Teddy.
I was impressed, too. And when you shoot 61% from three-point range against Virginia, you're doing something very, very right. Of course, you know, what's it, Diakate? I've always botched his name.
That's it.
But, yeah, Diakate for Virginia got hurt early. And I thought that missing, I mean, he's an impact player. He had, 12 blocks the last 4 games. Without him, they really struggled to contain the Blue Devils. And, of course, R.J. Barrett went nuts hitting all those three-pointers. Duke was the better team in the first meeting. I was very, very lucky to get a point spread cover with Virginia in that first meeting. Remember, they hit that shot at the buzzer.
Absolutely.
I didn't take Virginia in the second meeting, and I'm glad I didn't. They were, Duke's the better team.
It was amazing. You know, it's interesting to watch on that too, Teddy, because, we worry about Duke there. We know they're young. We know they're really athletic. When their shots are going down, almost unbeatable. But they even showed in that first matchup when their shots weren't going down, just a super athletic team, because we know how well Virginia plays, how smart they are. They can hit the open jumper. But sometimes when you get a team that's going to shoot well like Duke did and a little bit more athletic, you saw it really pressed up. 81 points, Teddy, was impressive for the Duke Blue Devils there.
Sure, you don't see teams hanging 81 on Virginia very often, although they're going to be playing a team tonight that hopes to be hanging 81 on them. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show.
Absolutely. Hey, Teddy, how about this, too? When you look at teams, there's no rest for the weary. And as you already put that nice little prelim in there, we're going to get to the UNC-UVA game. Duke has an interesting one on tap, going on the road with a nice winner and then going back on the road against another ranked team. We'll get to that, obviously, tomorrow. But odds are changing as we sit here, Teddy, in the NBA. After the trade deadline this week, all the mayhem that went down, teams got stronger in the East. Looks like teams in the West sort of stayed pat and said, you know what? It's going to be Golden State's year. We'll wait it out before we press the issue, but not so much in the East. When we checked on it last Friday, going on with some numbers, some interesting changes here. Bucks at plus 1,000 down to plus 900. Raptors at plus 1,000 down to 900. Celtics remain unchanged about plus 1,400. But the public liked what they saw from the Sixers at the trading deadline and the Sixers over the weekend, dropping slightly from plus 1,200, from plus 1,400 back to plus 1,200. We know it's a race for the East because it looks like Golden State's going to match up, but still some interesting stuff, Teddy, here at the trade deadline and moving forward here in the second half.
Look, a lot of talent went to for the first time. I've been able to say this, and I don't even know how long. A lot of talent went to the East at the trading deadline. You're talking about Marc Gasol going to Toronto. Guess what? They're a lot better now than they were last week, flat out. We talk about a guy like Mirotic going to Milwaukee. That's exactly who they needed. I mean, a brilliant trade for the Bucks. They got better, no question. And, of course, Philadelphia, you look at their starting five. Their starting five's, I'm not going to say every bit as good as Golden State's, but might be almost as good as Golden State. Certainly if they play together for a little while, they have that level of potential. So the 3 best teams in the East all got better. No wonder their odds went down. And Boston, from the beginning of the year, I'm like, the Celtics will be fine. The Celtics will be fine. The Celtics will be fine. The Celtics aren't going to be fine. The Celtics are not coming out of the East at this stage. And they showed that at the trading deadline with what it just the chemistry they had last year with Brad Stevens is not the same that they have this season. And the Kyrie Irving situation hasn't played out right. Boston, they're really good. But I don't think they come out of the East. It's one of the other 3 teams. And frankly, as good as the Raptors are, Sixers and the Bucks have the star power. Those are my 2 picks to meet in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, heading down the stretch, it should be pretty interesting. But you're right about that. I mean, how many years has it almost seems like it's been a full decade or even longer where at the trade deadline, it's the West angling and everybody's saying like, oh, man, TNT is going to get the West and the ESPN gets the East. Boy, that's going to be bad. Looks like in the playoffs this year, a quick reversal with that top 4 teams. We'll see if Indiana, the Pacers can hang in that top 4, which they currently are right now. But you're looking at that Final Four in the East, a lot of fun. Not so much in the West at this point. We see, minus 250, minus 200 for the Warriors to win the NBA title. It just seems like, and again, injuries can happen. It's still a long NBA season. We'll see what goes forward. But obviously, clearly Golden State the favorite. But maybe, Teddy, the Eastern Conference playoffs 1 through 4, at least that second round, going to be a lot of fun to watch.
I think the first round might be a lot of fun to watch. Look, Playoff, we watch the NBA regular season to get to the NBA playoffs. And when April rolls around and May rolls around, we're going to have good matchups and we're going to have good bets to make, which is more important for me because I don't care about the matchups. I want to see a good bet that I can make and cash a ticket. I think we'll have plenty of opportunities for that come the postseason in both conferences, even with the Warriors are prohibitive favorites in the West, as opposed to the Eastern Conference where there are 4 teams that have legitimate shots at this stage of the game. The Pacers, not one of those 4 teams.
I don't have the privilege of living in Las Vegas, Teddy, but it is snowing here in the Northeast, but that's not going to stop Major League Baseball. Grapefruit League action, the Cactus League action getting underway shortly. Pitchers and catchers are reporting here. And the good part about that is, Teddy, starting next week, obviously, we'll be going team by team to get you ready for opening day. It's never too early to talk baseball, even though, Teddy, if we're having like a lightning bet, so to speak, you are racking up victories with Bryce Harper and Manny Machado still sitting out post a week after the Super Bowl here. If we're looking at some baseball futures, they're always hitting up. But, Teddy, will we get that? Look, now the next wager is going to be before the first spring training game gets underway, will Manny Machado and Bryce Harper be signed?
And, you know, there's no urgency. I wish I was getting action points on that bet. But, you know, the futures right now, the future book is fair, is exactly what you expect for baseball, even with the big names unsigned. The Yankees, the Red Sox, the Astros, the Dodgers, and the Phillies as the top 5 contenders in the betting markets. I don't disagree with any of that. All that being said, am I putting money on baseball futures right now? Hell no. Over, under, win totals? You better believe it. But odds to win the World Series? No. The Yankees at plus 700 now will be available next week and next month and perhaps beyond that. These are not bets you have to run the betting window with. You can walk, take your time, shop around, and look around before you make your MLB future wagers at this stage of the game.
Teddy, March 28th will be our first Major League Baseball game in the continental United States. But, like, I'm usually a baseball purist here. And I like baseball season. It's a long grind. You know, you get to sit back, relax. It's a full schedule just about every day. But the reasoning sending them over to Japan March 20th and 21st, then taking another week before opening day, look, in the grand scheme of things, does it matter? Absolutely not. But I always like to say, oh, opening day, let's get ready. And all of a sudden, you're going to be sitting here once and say, hey, by the way, baseball's on. Hey, wait a minute. I got a week to go, I thought. Baseball opening overseas, Teddy, yay or nay for you?
Nay. I mean, you know, you're gonna tell me there's 2 regular season games in Japan on March 20th and 21st, and they matter as much as the 2 regular season games being played at the end of September. You know, I'm a nay. I understand they want to do something, they want to hype, but MLB's done so much stuff wrong. You know, this is just another thing that MLB is doing wrong. You have an opening day, hype it. Don't make 3 of them. You know? March 28th, you know, why March 28th? You know, beginning of April, guys. There's no rush. We don't need all these snowouts the first week of the season.
Oh, you know it, Teddy. Have that first cap there with Chris Sale going, hey, how's he going to pitch today in 21-degree weather and some flurries out there? It's always interesting. We'll see how we can get through that month of April just to get to May. I've always been an advocate. Look, baseball season is really long. I would love it if they started May 1st, but that's neither here nor there. I don't pay the bills. That's how they make their money, Teddy. Overnight line movers here. SBRodds.com, your single best place to check those overnight line movers here, your one-stop shop for all your sports betting needs. That betting show, let's get into it. UVA fresh off of defeat and the line moving in their direction. But however, Teddy, we've seen a complete flip this morning. Virginia starts after the favorite, -1.5. Flips back to North Carolina, now a favorite here. Total 142, moneyline split -123, +102. Also seeing some line movement as we're taping this, Teddy. 140.5 showing up offshore. This line is on the move. What gives here?
Well, there's a couple of things in play. First, you have the questions about Mamade Diakite.
I love it.
That guy's killing me. I apologize. I botch names every once in a while, more than every once in a while. But his status is questionable. I think there was a report early he was going to play and then a report that he wasn't going to play, and you have different groups betting that information. Then you have opinion on this game, and it is a game that bettors seem to have pretty strong opinions on, and they may not necessarily be the same opinion when you talk about the wise guys are on. Wise guys are on both sides in this ballgame. They're definitely on the under. Of course, it's a short turnaround for North Carolina off an overtime game. They hit 50% from 3 and still didn't sniff a cover against Miami over the weekend. They are, however, a great free throw shooting team, which matters in this point spread range.
Yeah, athletic ability is going to be going up and down the court tonight. We'll take a look at that game in just a little bit. TCU hosting Kansas, and that line's on the move. Both teams fresh off victories here. Kansas, forget about Teddy, you being under the weather here. Kansas a little bit banged up and trying to give it a go. Had a nice win on Saturday, but now take their time on the road and head down the Dallas-Fort Worth area. If we take a look at the lines here, opened up at 2, now shifting to -3. Over-under currently sitting at 148.5 for this one. Moneyline split +130, -150. What gives here in this? Kansas, it's one thing to play in the fog and be, a little bit undermanned and get that will from the crowd. Now you're going on the road in a conference opponent here. What are we looking at?
I mean, we have to call Kansas at least a modest disappointment. Mm-hmm. I mean, they haven't been as elite as expected this season. They've certainly been struggling on the highway. In fact, they're 0-4 straight up, 0-4 ATS. Their last 4 on the road, losing at K-State, Texas, Kentucky, and West Virginia. You look at that with TCU's strong home court. They're 9-2 against the spread. Their last 11 on this floor. You can understand some of the money coming in on the Horned Frogs. All that being said, Kansas won both meetings last year. They won the first meeting this year. They've won some of the last 8 overall. So Horned Frogs are the chalk here. Yet if they win the game, I'm still going to call it an upset.
Pacers at home. Most people still remember the Pacers being at home, pasting the Los Angeles Lakers, but getting back underway here. Some interesting line movement early on, Teddy, from 4 to 4.5, clearly in that Pacers direction here. Got a little bit of help on the buyout market to try to solidify that team after losing Victor Oladipo. We'll see if it plays out tonight when the Hornets come to town. Over under also on the move, Teddy. A drop here, opened up at 217.5, now sitting around that 215.5 range for tonight's tilt.
Yeah, I mean, Indiana now 5 straight wins. They lost 4 in a row without Oladipo when he first got hurt, and now 5 straight victories. And the markets are saying this means something. Of course, if you looked at who they've beaten during this span, they had the 1 win against the Clips, and everyone else came against a let's call it a relatively weak opposition. That being said, boy, they're playing good defense right now. They've allowed more than 94 just once during this 5-game span. They lead the NBA in scoring defense. They're number 2 in defensive efficiency behind only Milwaukee. No surprise here. The money has come on the under. I've got a little under money bet on this game myself.
There you go. Watch what you bet here. Also, watch that betting show. If you subscribe to the YouTube channel every single time, you get that notification that says, Donnie and Teddy are going live. Pop in and view the latest information to help you win some games here. UVA invades Chapel Hill. And as we talked about it just earlier, Teddy, some line swinging movement here. Maybe some people know somebody's out. Maybe some, get an extra feel in this game as the morning goes on. But we definitely have seen some movement shift. 7 p.m. Eastern time from the Dean E. Smith Center in Chapel Hill. Some interesting numbers here, Teddy. UNC is 11-1 straight up at home, 6-5-1 ATS. If you watch that game on Saturday, an undermanned Miami team came in there and gave UNC all they could handle and probably should have won the game. For some faulty defense late, let those Tar Heels through the back door and getting the win. But the almighty cover still went to those Hurricanes. UVA in an interesting spot. Teddy, they really got up at home for that game versus Duke. They wanted to get revenge from losing down in Durham. Weren't able to do so. This is a quick turnaround against an athletic North Carolina team. Should be a fun one.
Yeah, that's being said. I mean, it's not like the Tar Heels are loaded with a ton of depth. Either, Orleans rotations was about 7 deep on a regular basis this season, and they're coming off an overtime game. So while it's not a great spot for Virginia, certainly coming off the tough, emotional home loss, traveling, facing a foe that, that really wants them. Let's not forget, 71-63 and 61-49. Virginia won both meetings last year, 53-43, the final meeting in 2017. So Cavs have controlled this series of late. Certainly North Carolina has this game circled. But look at those scores. 71-63, 61-49. That's 49 for the Tar Heels. 53-43. That's 43 for the Tar Heels. Tony Bennett's defense has given Roy Williams a lot of trouble in recent meetings. Worth noting, that total, you talked about all the under money, total's been aligned at 137 or less. In each of the last 10 meetings, on only 2 of those have gone over 140. Certainly, I'm surprised to see as much under money as we've seen without the corresponding Virginia money to go with it. All that being said, under money makes sense in a series that has not seen a whole lot of fast-paced affairs.
Yeah, so 140.5 currently out there, some 141s. So depending on where you're shopping around, get that best market availability. But it should be a fun one because I always like, instead of having a week to get ready or, this is right off a shotgun start. Both teams played Saturday, and we'll have the travel issues for Virginia going down to North Carolina. North Carolina played at home on Saturday. Should be a good one to watch tonight. NBA action, Teddy. Mavericks steal a late one versus Portland with a mad charge in the fourth quarter, but now must take the show on the road and take up James Harden and those Houston Rockets, line currently at -10. Total, 221.5 money line split plus 450, -620. It's going to be an 8 o'clock national game on NBA TV live from the Toyota Center in Houston, Texas. Teddy, young upstart, making trades, making moves. Porzingis coming to the Mavs next year. Not going to help you tonight. Does James Harden, typically when we're looking at their home favorite, 12, 10, and 1, can they dip in and bust us up by 10 points or more, Teddy, to cash that ticket?
Well, look, the Dallas Mavericks have been the single best point spread team in the NBA from day one this season. And they continue to be the single best point spread team in the NBA after yesterday's, I'm going to call that a shocking win, all right? Dallas looked like a team that had traded 4 of their 5 starters away the previous week for the first 3 quarters of that ballgame. And the Blazers are in the 4th, and they're up 15, and everything's fine. I got a Portland ticket in my pocket, and I'm watching that game. It feels like a rocking chair. I'm mad I didn't bet more. And then the Blazers stopped scoring. Now, a lot of that was Dallas defensively. The Mavs defense in that fourth quarter was spectacular. Of course, the refs allowed them to play a very physical style. On repeated drives from McCollum and Lillard, there were no fouls called. There were no free throws. And it wasn't like the Mavs offense was clicking, but Doncic creates, man. He just creates. And they rallied from the dead, not just to steal the cover, to win the game outright. That's what they've been doing a lot. Dallas has been finding a way. They've got a stud at point guard, but I don't know they're going to be able to match that tonight. I really don't expect them to be able. I didn't expect them to be able to do it yesterday. But when you trade away 4 of your starters and you're going against a Houston team, they're not going to take Dallas lightly this evening. They're coming off a bad home loss to OKC over the weekend. And in theory, it's supposed to be a let's circle the wagons game and beat up on our in-state rival and make sure everybody knows we're the Kings of Texas type of games for the Rockets. I wouldn't argue with anyone betting Houston in this ballgame, but honestly, I stepped in front of Dallas yesterday, and they were better than I thought they were going to be on both ends of the court during crunch time. And when I see that situation from the best point spread team in the NBA, I'm probably leaving this one alone.
There you go. Hardcourt action wrapped up there. Give you guys something to watch out there, nibble on. Off the mic segment today, Teddy. Just when you thought the Super Bowl was over and you can rest and you can put all those catalogs away of statistics and say, see you next summer, a new football scope comes into focus over the weekend, and that was the Alliance of American Football. Couple games this weekend. Might have caught you by surprise. Say, wait a second, what's football? Is this Arena League? Is this World League football? Is this XFL football? Looks like trying to be a little bit more mainstream, as you saw on the telecast. Teddy, Bill Polian was on there. Some interesting stuff here before we get into the betting aspect of it, which I thought were good. No extra points in the game. Each team must go for 2, but the one I actually really liked, Teddy, was no onside kick, and instead you get a 4th and 12 to try to convert that and keep the football. If you saw the changes made in the NFL over the past year, it's harder and harder to get an onside kick. What did they get? Maybe 3 or 4% of the total onside kicks actually got converted the opposite direction. This changed it up a little bit. I like that this is a testing ground here, but now it's going to be another testing ground out in Las Vegas to see if we can get the betting handle up and who's going to bet on this stuff, Teddy.
Yeah, sure. And look, the rules are interesting. They're gimmicky. Fine. I'm fine with that. I watched over the weekend. Did it hold my attention for the entire game? It did not. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that you have a bunch of offensive lines that don't know what they're doing yet. Good reports on the betting handle or the interest on the AAF from a couple of articles that I read and a couple of people that I talked to. They were saying, like Westgate was talking at Superbook, they said the handle for the AAF was comparable to an average NCAA basketball game, which means they're decent. At South Point, Chris Andrews said the AAF betting, quote, exceeded his expectations. That being said, at the Caesars books, they were saying that they had the 5 times more handle on the Pro Bowl than they did on the AAF game. Certainly the action from a betting standpoint, fairly limited, but very, very early in the process. And if the product is good, people will bet, people will handicap, no question about it. I give them kudos for getting guys out there, for getting a league off the ground, not easy to do. I give them kudos for having at least a competent level of play over the weekend. And Hopefully we'll see some of these offensive lines come together. We can see some sustained drives, and we can figure out which QBs can make plays and which QBs can't, because much like the Arena Football League, you're betting secondary football leagues, find a quarterback and an offensive line that you want your money on and bet them again and again and again. That's my first gut when it comes to betting the AAF.
Teddy, by the way, in this league, they had some decent ratings on Saturday night from what we were seeing. Obviously, if we compare it over the XFL, which had the backing of Vince McMahon and the WWE, they had really high ratings, but almost saw like, a bad stock or a bad day on the stock market as that line continually moved lower. I think this league does have a chance to succeed. It's not all pomp and circumstance, but maybe if they can show you good football, because as I said, you're the same way I am. If I'm going to watch a game, I do want to be entertained, especially, look, we can all watch bad NFL games because you have money on it, but it's one thing if you don't have money on it and watch a bad lower level football game. Do you think this league can sustain if it plays decent football and just maybe wedge itself in there in the spring?
The no has to be the favorite.
Yeah.
But it all depends on expectations. Arena football was around for about 30 years, expectations were low. At times they got higher. When they got higher, well, they got low. They got lowered again fairly quickly. So the XFL had enough to come back for a second season, but it didn't meet these enormous rating expectations. Remember, the crowds were full. People were into that league. I loved that league for a little while. But it all just comes down to managing expectations. The NFL didn't start where it is today. It takes time. And this is the type of thing that will take time. I was excited about the crowd support for the home teams. The stadiums had fans and excited fans, fans dressing up for the first game. Good for them. There's hope. It's still not chalk to survive.
Teddy, the Alliance of American Football may not make it here, but that betting show on sportsbookreview.com will absolutely make it here. Teddy pulling up a big show today on a Monday. He's going to be here all week, folks, and we'll have a good time going over the pertinent information that you